Hi everyone. I'm trying something a little bit experimental today. But before we dig into it, first off, it's been a really tough several months, both for me personally as well as for the world. As you all know, right now when I look outside my window, it is really dark and cloudy skies, but really that's just smoke, and it really smells smoky outside. It kind of feels like the world is about to end. But I feel that hopefully we're turning a corner. I feel like I say that every month, and I hope you all are staying safe, most importantly, and doing well to the best that we all can. So I think with that, it's important to keep going. And I want to pick up on some of my past posts. I've talked a lot about marketing, a lot about tactical marketing, and specifically around funnels. But I really want to dig into some concrete examples, and that's what we're going to do in this video today. We're going to go through a couple of concrete examples because I feel like when things are taught at a high level, people understand conceptually, but who really cares and who really knows? So let's give this a whirl. I guess, on a Zoom recording by myself, and I'm going to try to whiteboard on this Zoom. This is a little bit experimental, as I said, but we will give this a whirl. So first off, what is a funnel? Just as a quick recap, well, a funnel looks kind of like this, and it's really representative of how sales happen. So down here we have sales once we close people, and at the top we have a bunch of like perspectives. These could be, website visitors, or if you are trying to sell something in person, they could be people coming into your store. And just loosely speaking, this is the top of the funnel, this is the middle of the funnel, and this is the bottom of the funnel. And the goal, as we all know, is to get customers. So we want to try to get as many people from up here to move down here and buy. Like, that is the goal in most cases. Now, obviously, if you're running a consumer app, the goal may be slightly different. But for most of you out there, your goal is probably making money. And ultimately, that's what you need to do as a business. So that is what we are going to focus on today. Customers who can actually pay you, whether they're consumers or if you're a B2B company, company customers. All right, so let's go through some examples. I think the first example that I have today is, why don't we just talk about Hustle Fund itself, since that's a funnel that I'm most familiar with and spend pretty much every day thinking about. So what is the funnel for Hustle Fund? And you may be wondering, well, a VC doesn't really have a funnel, do they? Like, what is your business model? And our business model is a little bit weird, right? We invest in companies and hopefully they exit and make money, and that's how we make our money. But let's just kind of map out what that funnel looks like. So at the top of the funnel, we need to have startups learn about us at Hustle Fund. So call it startup applications of sorts. And well, actually, no. Let's actually remove that. That is a middle of funnel goal. I'm already messing up here. So first, we need to have startups hear about us. So let's just call it website traffic. So people who come to the Hustle Fund landing page, you see our video on there, you read about us. Then as an intermediary step, we have actually startup applications. And that's what I was saying earlier. This is actually an intermediary step because you need to find out that we exist first before you even fill out an application. And then lastly, at the bottom of the funnel is where we make money. So somewhere in here, we invest, and the company does well and exits. So this is our funnel for Hustle Fund. And let's just talk through this. We have basically, everybody has top of funnel, middle funnel, and bottom of funnel. And I think the important thing to understand in marketing is it's really, really important to focus on just one thing at a time. As I've mentioned before in past content, you can track all kinds of metrics. You can track your social media followings, you can track your revenue, you can track your CAC, you can track your LTV, your sales cycle. There are just 101 things you can track. And it's very overwhelming. And the honest answer is, the best marketers actually really make things simple. Just pick one. Pick one metric that matters, focus on it now, and try to move the needle on that one metric that matters. Do not worry about the other things. Maybe you have a dashboard to keep your eye on the other things, but just focus on one thing at a time. And after you move the needle on that one thing, then maybe you refocus your energies and focus on a different thing and just that only one thing at that time. So for most startups, the problem with their funnel is, well, the problem is in all three sections, the beginning, the middle, and the end. But I think for a lot of people, where you can move the needle the most is actually top of funnel. Because even if you improve the conversions, very often people don't have enough top of funnel traffic to really justify spending time down here. So let's talk about this. Well, I mean, I think for us, we also are a startup in some sense, and we also focus a lot on top of funnel traffic. At other times, we have looked at the middle of the funnel. We actually haven't spent very much time in conversion. And so we've spent most of our time at top of funnel and middle of funnel, but almost all of our time in this top of funnel. And we'll talk about top of funnel and middle of funnel for us at HustleFund in a second. So how can we increase traffic? Well, let's just kind of start rattling them off. There's Twitter. We spend a lot of time on Twitter. We do Twitter threads. We retweet people, especially influential people. That brings in more people to find out about us, etc. We do events. We speak at both online events and offline events during non-COVID times. That's another way people can find out about us and end up on our website. Other ways, like, through news, TechCrunch, not just if TechCrunch writes about us, but if they write about our companies or about a thought piece about changing diversity in the startup ecosystem, whatever TechCrunch writes about, if we can get our name in there, great. And in fact, actually, YC does this incredibly well, where most pieces are not about YC, but they have so many companies that they inevitably get in every single TechCrunch piece. So news, and then, there are plenty of other channels as well. Certainly, at this point, some of you read my blog. So there's my blog, there's the HustleFund blog, and there's some level of SEO. We don't take out many ads, but on occasion we do, to drive people to either our events or other things. But we'll talk about that in a second. And so you can keep on rattling, and the list goes on and on. Maybe there are ads, maybe there are partnerships, like if we were to do talks with accelerators. In fact, I do the rounds and go visit a lot of accelerators and do talk with companies in accelerators. So partnerships is another one. So, there are many ways to get top of funnel traffic, and you can do this exercise for your own company as well. Now, let's talk about the middle of the funnel. And I said that we have spent some time in the middle of the funnel. And what does that really mean? Well, it's one thing to send everybody to our website, but a lot of people who go to our website are just not really at the right stage. And by right stage, I mean they are ready to apply and receive funding and then, continue on. Well, there are a lot of people who may have heard of us, but they are just thinking about starting a business, or they may not even be there yet, but they maybe in 5 years will start a business. So there are people at different points in the funnel. And so if we just send people to our website and we don't actually capture their information in any way, then it's actually really hard to stay top of mind. Like somebody who is not yet starting a business, but may leave a company in 5 years to start a business, we want to make sure that person is top of mind. And so as such, the middle of the funnel is the place to do it. And this often, to many people, they call it lead generation. I had no idea what this term meant when I started my company, which was, by the way, a marketing company, an advertising network of sorts. But lead generation is a good way to do that. And what does that actually mean? Well, in most cases, it means capturing an email address on some sort of web page. It could mean capturing a phone number, and maybe you keep up with somebody by texting them. So keeping up with somebody by texting or by emailing is a good way to stay top of mind. There are other forms of messaging as well, but those are probably the two most common and I would say the most effective. So lead generation via email and also by text. For us, we do lead generation solely by email, at least at this point in time. Well, how do we do that? There are a couple of ways for this middle zone. One is, some of you have been to our free online events. We do a lot of free online events on very tactical things, a tactical topic such as this one. But For our Hustle Fund events, our official Hustle Fund events, we have a sign-up page and people fill it out with their name and their email address. And then there are other ways as well. We have done in-person events from time to time during non-COVID times, and people can sign up for an Eventbrite or something like that. So events is a good way to do it, whether it's online or offline. Other things, HubSpot does this incredibly well. If you have an ebook or if you have a white paper or something like that, maybe you have a landing page and you have a way to sign up, hey, get this free ebook on how to, come up with 10 listicles that are great for social media or something like that. That's another way that you can generate leads. We don't have that with Hustle Fund, but we do a lot of our lead generation through online events, and that's our primary method. I think, frankly speaking, I just do a call out from time to time asking people to sign up for either my personal newsletter or the Hustle Fund personal newsletter, or company letter, I should say. And we do send out a newsletter about tips and tricks on various things, as well as about these events as well. So that's lead generation. So these are the two areas where we have spent the most time, top of funnel and middle of funnel. All right, let's move on. Now, let's kind of pull this together for Hustle Fund, and then I want to actually dig into examples that may be more relevant to you. But it is really important from time to time to connect the dots on both, top of funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel. Because, for example, the leads you are generating, let's say in the middle of the funnel, you don't know if they're relevant. That may be your focus, but you do from time to time have to keep your eye on how everything connects together. So let's just kind of map this out. As I've kind of mentioned here, there are various ways that we do top of funnel. So one is just like talking on Twitter, and we ask people to sign up for things like, our events, whether they're online or offline. We will write a blog post about it. We will shout it across the mountaintops. Sometimes we will do partnerships. Asking people to share about our free events, and they could be tactical events teaching something, or it could be more social events. So we have all these sources that drive to landing pages, and then we cultivate those leads using email, so our email newsletter. And we drive people back to events, and then back to the email, and back to events, and then back to the email. So that way, by the time you are ready to start a company, hopefully you will remember us and apply. At some point, people then get to the next bucket and they apply on our website, Hustle Fund VC. And this is why I am so adamant about everybody going to the homepage, hustlefund.vc, and submitting their application there instead of sending it to somebody on our team through email, because then things just drop through the cracks. But if everything is in one spot, just like how you would run a company, like you would never have your users sign up with you personally. Maybe in the beginning you do, but eventually you want to streamline everything. That is the most efficient way to do it. So in fact, even if somebody sends me a warm referral, I actually ask everybody to submit here. And in the rare cases when I forget, I have to do it. So this is how you build out a process. Even if you're a VC firm, you still have to build out a process. So eventually people remember us and then they apply. And then in some cases, we will fund with dollars, and then in some other cases, maybe we make money. That's the whole cycle. And what you need to analyze here is, okay, people we are, let's just take this step. People we are investing money in, where are they coming from? And you got to be able to backtrack into all of this. Do they actually come from events? And if they come from events, where do they come from? Do they come from Twitter, the blog, the partnerships? Like, what are the good channels for us, and referrals as well? And as it would turn out, actually, we have, done the analysis on this. About half of the people we end up investing in had at least a touch point on Twitter, which is actually incredibly high. Now, the problem with marketing is you often don't know the order of events. Like, you don't know if somebody saw your tweet and then later they clicked on that link and then converted. Or the other way around, it's, they found out about you through that link and then they decided to read your tweets and then later they applied, right? So sometimes these things you have to do a bit of guesswork, but the interesting tidbit here is that 50% of people who end up getting funding from us have come to Twitter and seen our stuff or interacted with our stuff or whatever. So this is why we actually spend a lot of time on Twitter. We don't know the order of how things happen, whether it's all of our tweets that drive this action or the opposite, like people are engaged by our tweets. But that was an interesting tidbit. The other interesting thing about this process that I would just say is that actually 15% of people who get funding from us come completely cold. So meaning they did not come in from a referral or a partnership. They did not come in from basically anybody, whether it's somebody we know really well who's a VC or a portfolio entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur whose business we didn't back. It means there was zero referral, like nobody recommended or referred that company. They just went through this process. You know, maybe they came to an event, maybe they were on our newsletter, but they eventually directly submitted on our application. So this is why we spend a lot of time on Twitter. This is why we spend a lot of time doing, you know, direct communications like this, because we want to encourage everybody who is interested in potentially looking for funding to apply directly with us. You do not need a warm referral, and a high percentage of our companies already do not have any referral. All right, so that's just a little bit about us, but who really cares about us? The point here is I wanted to illustrate that you need to track everything and understand if your leads are good and where they're coming from. And that is why, backing into that, we spend a lot of time on Twitter. Now, if it turned out, I think hypothetically, that actually a lot of the leads were coming not from Twitter and were coming from our blog or whatever it is, then we would be doing things differently. We would not be spending this much time on Twitter, right? So that's why you have to understand where then to spend your time on top of funnel and connect the dots to bottom of funnel. Even if your one metric that matters is top of funnel, you want to make sure that the activity you're spending your time on to move the needle on that is actually important or relevant. So that is a bit about our concrete example with our funnel analysis. And I'm just going to erase this here. Now let's talk about some product companies. All right, so this is more interesting or relevant to all of you. So let's just say that we have a run-of-the-mill, B2B SaaS company. And, you know, a lot of these B2B SaaS companies have a very similar model. If we just kind of look at it, maybe what you have here is you have a bunch of people who come to your website, and they come through a variety of channels, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then, maybe people are not ready to sign up right now. So you try to maybe convert them to your white paper, very common. Maybe you try to convert them to your online event or something, but you try to collect an email sign up. And then at some point, maybe people sign up, which is a warmer lead than just filling out your email. And then at some point, if you have, let's say, a freemium model, then people convert. And then from there, you have an upsell into more money as well. So that's a very typical B2B SaaS model. So let's kind of dissect this in terms of what the funnel looks like. Well, top of funnel is the website. So how are we going to get lots of traffic coming in up here? And then bottom of the funnel is people actually paying for this. And then somewhere in here, there are essentially various levels of lead qualification. And so there's let's just call it the event sign up. And then you also have like a free user, right? So you have a couple of different stages of that middle section. So let's kind of dig into this. Well, as I mentioned, for most people, their biggest problem is actually top of funnel, not conversions, because in the beginning, when you have no traffic, improving conversions is not really going to help. So how are we going to generate more traffic for this, run-of-the-mill B2B SaaS company? Well, as it turns out in marketing, a lot of things are fairly cookie cutter. Certainly you want to be creative to stand out. But with B2B, the detail in terms of standing out is in the actual copy or the content. But in terms of the mechanics, it's very similar to other B2B companies. So what can we do to generate top of funnel? Well, one thing we can do is we can do outbound. We can send a lot of direct emails to people. So outbound sales, like just cold emails to drive traffic. And we'll talk about what that funnel looks like, how that may differ. But a second thing we can do here is, we can do partnerships. it's very common for B2B companies to partner with each other. Maybe you do a webinar or you cross promote on each other's email lists or something like that. So you could do partnerships. You can certainly take out ads. To some extent, you can work on your SEO, although that's not going to kick in the beginning, but it could be a good long-term play. So there are lots of different traffic sources, regardless of actually whether you're B2B or consumer. And so that's all top of funnel. Now, the middle stage is, all right, well, how are we going to capture all these people? And this is where I think this differs from B2B versus from B2C. Like with B2C, a common thing that you may see in this middle part of the funnel is, I'm going to offer you 10% off. Like if you're an e-commerce site, I'm going to give you a discount, or if you're food delivery, I'm going to give you a discount or something like that. Discounts are really popular. For B2B in general, I would say that works less well. And the reason being is there's a bit of a disconnect. Like the people who really benefit from the company doing well, not necessarily the marketers, right? Like if you hired a marketer for your company, like, okay, yeah, maybe you tell them to be frugal and save money, but in all honesty, the person's not really incentivized to save money or try to get 10% off. The B2B marketer in this case is just trying to do his or her job and generate leads and sales. So, you know, to the extent that you can, like, if you're selling to a company, you got to understand what is that particular buyer's problem. And I think, you know, if we're selling this B2B marketing solution, like what is a typical buyer's problem? Well, so we're marketing to marketers, which is a little confusing, but you know, they want to drive more revenue as well. They want to drive more traffic as well. So what can you do? Well, you can have an event on how to get more sales, on how to drive more traffic. And I think the key here is, well, how can you differentiate your content from other players in the space who are doing something similar? So can you think of an angle that is unique to you? It could be in the copy, or it could even just be in the approach. So that's something that I would think about, like, how do you solve that particular person's problem? Events are a great way to do it, whether it's online or offline. Another good way to do it is, you know, people often poo-poo white papers, but they actually really do work. Like when I was running my B2B marketing company, I thought that white papers were just really stodgy and archaic, but actually they do work. And why is that? Well, people want to know that other people have had success with this. So to the extent possible, how can you prove that or show that? And so that's another thing that you can gauge. So that's what I would think through here. I think a lot of people are a bit careless in what they produce, whether it's the event or the white paper. It's just like, oh, let's just throw up a white paper and get people to sign up for it. Well, it's got to be interesting, and it's got to be, you know, something worth signing up for. And I think a lot of the language that people use is either too boring, or doesn't actually solve a problem, or uses too much jargon or things like that. And so, you know, people will sign up for these things, but it's got to be helpful, informative, and interesting. And that, I think, is the crux. And so this is the middle of the funnel here. And then at the bottom of the funnel is like, okay, well, now that everyone's on your list, how can you convert them to sign up? And this is the other area where I think a lot of people have problems, is like, okay, I'm just going to send weekly emails. And if I look at a lot of the weekly emails I get, like they're just so cluttered with random news and stuff. Honestly, you know, some of the best weekly emails that I get are either very personal, and a couple of newsletters to look at or whatnot. I'm a bit biased here, but you know, certainly in our newsletter, to the extent that we can, we try to show that there's a person. So this is not an email just from, you know, some stodgy company, but it is from an actual person. So I think that's one thing you can do to make it more personal. Add the person's picture, add the person's personality a bit and language. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is actually don't even make it a newsletter format at all. Like one of our portfolio companies called Unstack actually does a great job with this. The emails you get from them, they seem like they are actually just personalized emails to me, like plain text. Of course, there's a link in there every now and then with a call to action, but just plain text from the CEO. And it seems like he is sending me a personal email, even though I'm on a list. So that's what I would do with email to try to increase the engagement and keep people cultivated in during this stage of trying to move them from basically middle of funnel to bottom of funnel. And I would say here that in addition, it's very important to show authority, and people often say the words thought leadership, which I feel like is jargon, but really it's, can you trust this company, and can you trust that this company will give you good advice on how to solve your problem? And if the answer is yes, people will buy, not just for your product, but because they like you, trust you, believe you. To some extent, they are investing in you as a person, not as a company, but they become customers of you because they like you and want to be supportive of you as a person. So that's what I would say about B2B marketing. I think, to recap on where the pitfalls often are, it is that people are either not interesting or unique enough, so boring, not differentiated in your content, like I can learn about this anywhere, not personalized, so it's you're not a person. That's what I often see. Wrong format. It looks too cookie cutter, mass email. It's not, again, I think personalized. In this case, I'm talking about the copy, but in this case, I'm talking about the email format itself. Other things, it just doesn't seem like it's credible, I guess is the right word. Like, why can you help me with my problem? And so that's really what this is all about. Like, can you get people to buy by selling them on these things about yourself? That's really what this is about, in moving people from the middle stage to the end of the funnel. And so you get all these people at the top of the funnel. This is all middle of the funnel stuff, and getting people down. And then how do you drive traffic to the top of the funnel? Well, we rattled off all those sources before. The question there is, how can you create a repeatable process such that you put $1 into that process, and then eventually you get $1.01 out? So what are the cheap ways you can do it? Well, partnerships. Like, can you do it with one partner and then figure out, how can I rinse and repeat this? If I hired 2 other people to do this, can I really saturate out partnerships, as an example? Or same thing with ads. Sometimes ads actually do work in generating leads to, let's say, an ebook or white paper or an event or whatever. Can I put in $1 in ads, and then eventually those ads lead to a sale, which means on average across all the people who clicked, am I making $1.01? So that's the thinking behind funnels in a very concrete way. Let's talk a little bit about the consumer use case. I don't want to belabor this point, but I do think that there are some slight differences between consumers and B2B. So I'm just going to clear this. Actually, I'm going to keep this part. So again, same thing. What are all the top of funnel leads? Or what are all the traffic sources? And then how can we generate leads? And then how can we generate sales? So for a lot of consumer businesses, let's say that we're selling pet hippo food, something random or weird like that, ways to do it. Like, can we do it on Twitter? Can we write a blog? Can we do cross-promotional partnerships? Very same sets of activities. Can we, even random things, like, can we do direct mail to get people to our website? And let's measure the cost of all those activities. And then, how good of a job can we do in generating leads? Well, with consumer, we can offer discounts. That certainly works well for people who are close to converting. But maybe there are also other ways we can gate some landing pages. People may not realize that they need to feed their pet hippo. So maybe we need to do an event on pet hippo care. and get everyone to this Zoom event. And so how can you solve this pet owner's problem? Like, you know, maybe he or she has issues with hippo grooming or feeding, or logistically, how do you feed, or things like that. Can you build a landing page essentially around that content, whether it's in webinar form, a video form, PDF form, it doesn't matter, but get people here, and then from there cultivate the relationship with them over time with, you know, maybe email or text. And that's kind of it. That is how you, at a high level, work people through a funnel. And I wanted to use these couple of tactical examples. And as you can see, actually, in all three cases, the tactics are very similar. The differences, though, in what makes or breaks something is, one, I guess, is it even a problem or a need in the first place? Like in this case with this, you know, this hippo food issue, I don't even think that's an issue, right? How many people even have pet hippos? So maybe your problem is not actually a problem, and you may find that. But if it is a problem, or you know it's a problem because you have competitors in the space, then the question, as we went through before, is like, well, how can you stand out on your content? How can you differentiate yourself? How can you actually be helpful? How can you show your personality? How can you get people to believe in you, that you are credible, and want to be a customer because they want to be supportive of you, not just in solving the problem, but believe you can solve their problem? So those are typically the pitfalls that I see once you get traffic to your site. I'm going to halt right there, and thanks so much for joining me on this, you know, seemingly terrible Friday afternoon. But hopefully this helps out a bit in thinking through tactical examples of your marketing funnel.